You're listening to Driving Place-Based Innovation, a podcast series by NewcastleGateshead Initiative, produced in partnership with the digital tourism think tank. I'm Nick Hall, and I'll be your host for this series where we're going to be looking at how digital and technology innovation is driving transformation of Northeast England's visitor economy. Throughout the series, we'll be sitting down with organisations near and far, balancing a local perspective where we hope to shine a light on innovation in and around Newcastle with global perspectives, bringing together learnings from further afield. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to be sure that you don't miss out on future episodes. For more information about the series or to get in touch, just head over to ngi.org.uk/podcast, where you'll be able to find out more information and how to get involved. In episode 4 of Driving Place-Based Innovation, we asked the question, can technology shape better places? We'll be hearing from Ian Thomas, Destination Director at NewcastleGateshead Initiative, and Gavin Neate, founder of Welcome Me. We'll be discussing how technology can play a key role in overcoming accessibility barriers in Newcastle's hospitality sector, and how it can create better awareness for hospitality staff to address the wide array of individual needs that our visitors have. We love this because Gavin represents the very best of entrepreneurship, technology, and place-based innovation all at once. Later, we meet Delhi-based Neha Arora, founder of Planet Abled, and someone who is deeply passionate about helping everybody experience the power of discovering new places, people, and cultures. Neha shares her excitement for technology's place as an enabler and the need for open innovation ecosystems, not only to solve, but to break down barriers in tourism so travel can be enjoyed by everyone.
So my name is Ian Thomas. I'm Destination Director at NewcastleGateshead Initiative, or NGI as everyone refers us to. And my role is really looking at the tourism strategy and destination management plan for the next 10 years. So looking at what's going to make Newcastle and Gateshead a better place for all visitors. And I think particularly looking at make sure that we are a fully inclusive destination.
My name's Gavin Neate. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Welcome. I am ex of Guide Dogs for the Blind. In that job for 18 years, recognizing the importance of customer service for disabled people and wanting to find ways to improve that, not just for the disabled person, but also for the customer service representative as well. And obviously now working with NGI and doing what's going to be an amazing project in Newcastle.
Great. Well, today we are talking about how technology can shape better places. So I think this collaboration and having both of you discuss this at the same time is really going to add a lot of value. And of course, we want to really get that context as to how you're applying the opportunities that technology brings to change and shape places, but also make places more inclusive and accessible. So Gavin, that sounds really fascinating, the work that you've been doing. And I can hear from your voice that you also have a strong sense of passion and excitement about it. Tell us a little bit about Welcome and how you're trying to use technology as a medium for training and working with frontline staff so that they have a better understanding.
Yeah, certainly. I just on that, I would say that I would make a rubbish poker player because I can't hide that passion. Within a couple of seconds of me talking about what I love doing, people go, "Oh, you're incredibly passionate," and I'm like, I can't even hide it for a second. And yes, I am incredibly passionate, and it's an interesting journey I've been on to get to this stage. And bearing in mind here that for 18 years I was training guide dogs, which must be one of the sort of premier employments in the entire world. You're training people how to use a guide dog, which is just phenomenal. So how could I possibly move on to something else? And technology was the gateway in order to do that. And I call it a gateway very much on purpose. Technology is not the end result here. Technology is just a conduit for the end result, which is improved human communication. And I think that is key to everything that I do with my company. But a little bit of background, first of all. As a mobility instructor, you're walking along with your client, you go into a shop with your client, and from a distance, you observe how your visually impaired client with their guide dog interacts with a customer service person and how the customer service person interacts with the visually impaired person. And I would observe that from a distance rather than standing on the shoulder of my client. And I was always be asking myself the question, why didn't the customer service person introduce themselves to the blind person? Because it's obvious that they wouldn't see their name badge or something like that. And then I was like, well, that's just not working. But the person appears to has told me they've had customer service training or disability awareness training. So how is that not happening? And then I realized that the traditional training just didn't prepare people for in-the-moment interactions. And then in 2003, going back in time a little bit, somebody had turned up to train with their guide dog, taken their mobile phone out, and their mobile phone had started talking to them because of the accessibility functionality within their phone, technology called VoiceOver on Apple. And over the next few years, I was just thinking about ways that my clients were going to be using the mobile phone technology, until eventually, instead of thinking about how other people might use the technology, I started thinking how I would use it to help my clients. And one way, which is the welcome solution, is to communicate directly with a customer service team before you walk through the door. And that does loads of different things. But the key for me there was it empowered the disabled person to dictate the level of service that they needed. So they were empowered. For the first time ever, we weren't doing things to disabled people, we were doing them for disabled people. And in 2018, Welcome was launched with 5 venues up here in Edinburgh, where I am, but is now in 170 venues across the UK, with Newcastle joining us with this amazing project. And it's going to be phenomenal for the Northeast, because they're going to probably leap into they might be first, certainly second place in the UK for numbers of venues in a particular area, which is just remarkable. Anyway, so Welcome is a customer service team that helps disabled people dictate the level of service they need, but also through that digital service triggers training, in the moment training for the staff member, so that they know how to interact with the person when they arrive at their building.
You definitely are passionate, Gavin, so I can definitely vouch for that. I think you've really shown us how technology, of course, is just a conduit to something else, but it also has this amazing enabling and empowering factor that is just so rich and changes the game completely. Ian, you've got a great introduction there about how Newcastle is just championing technology and really embracing this kind of transformative opportunity that exists right now. Tell us a little bit about how you guys have worked together with Gavin and his team to really embrace what he's developed and make sure that this is something that can really transform Newcastle from an accessibility perspective.
Absolutely, and I also like the fact Gavin sent me the challenge of becoming first and not second. So that's a challenge accepted. I think, look, we all know the role technology has played and the transformation it's made into the visitor economy. You kind of only have to look at your user journey as you come into any destination now. You see the signage with what car parking's available. You use your app to buy your coffee. You kind of see the what's on through kind of those digital display boards. And actually, they're great, but they're nice to have. What Gavin and the work we're doing is actually enabling a community who maybe feel that barriers are being put in front of them to actually engage with the visitor economy. And what this project really excites me about is the fact that we can give people who maybe thought they were never going to be able to get into that theatre, never be able to go in to stay in that hotel, the confidence to be able to have that journey and to be able to make that visit. And this isn't about working with one part of the visitor economy. This is working across the visitor economy, so from their transport to their hotel stay to the restaurant they'll visit to the attraction, and really being able to kind of have that pre-conversation with those venues to say, I'm coming, this is my needs. And look, the businesses may say we can't meet all of those needs, but they can have that conversation, and both sides, both the visitor and the business, can feel confident that they will be able to make the right adaptations. And when we talk about adaptations, we're not talking physically transforming your building. We are talking about customer service. Essentially, we are talking about being able to welcome that person and really make them feel valued and on an equal footing. And that was why when we first looked at this project, we called it, when we were building it, equitable experiences. This is about bringing a level playing field to this. And that's why we're really excited. the technology Gavin's bringing, but also colleagues that we're working with. We're doing 360 filming from a wheelchair perspective, so you can really kind of see that immersive view of the venues. So I think for us, we don't see this as a nice to do or something that's the next step. This is bringing tourism where it should be, not where we want it to be.
I think that's really powerful. And, tourism is an industry which is built on people and bringing people together, but also that exchange that exists in tourism. And we traditionally kind of think about the cultural exchange in tourism, but I think you're kind of speaking to an exchange which is both enabling more people to have that cultural exchange and have those experiences, but also it's an exchange in terms of a better understanding of the individuality that exists in our society, and the fact that actually everybody has different barriers, different needs, different interests, and different passions, and everybody should be able to enjoy that experience that we want them to enjoy. Gavin, jumping back to you and kind of reflecting a bit on how technology has evolved over the last decade. We've seen it from the apps and the kind of the things that were really exciting and everybody had to have, to a point where now it's much more embedded in our day-to-day lives. And it seems that with that, we need to be much more use case driven. We need to be much more thinking about the problems we're trying to solve and the user experience for and how that changes and transforms that experience for somebody else. Tell us a bit about the different components in the solution you've developed, because Ian mentioned also that opportunity to see from another point of view. But I think there's quite a lot of granularity. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh my word, there is serious depth to this particular question, because there are so many different tranches of what we're doing here. And I think key, because I know that whenever there is a conversation around technology, there are people who listen to that conversation and go, "Oh, I hate technology," or "No, I don't use technology." And obviously that number of people have decreased, because as we've gone forward, more people have got mobile phones and things like this. When I started in 2003, 2006, around that time, it was a very, very small fraction of people. And I was very aware that elderly people potentially didn't use mobile phones, or mobile phones weren't as accessible as they used to be. But I saw this in advance in 2006 with VoiceOver, and it's become more and more accessible. But I was very, very aware that I didn't want a solution that was only available to technology users. I wanted a solution that helped everybody through technology. So if we just imagine for a second that a person walks through a door of a building using my technology, the person in the building gives them better customer service because they've learned a little bit more and they've had their senses heightened about disability. The next 5, 10, 20 people who walk through the door, whether they are using our service or not, will all get better customer service from that staff member, because ultimately what we're doing is training the staff member and raising their awareness of disability. So that was key to me. It was like, I want to help the one person who's got technology, but the 9 people who don't have technology. And of course, nowadays we've got 3 people who are using technology and 7 people who aren't. But there had to be this bridge that would go between nobody's using technology, everybody's using it. So that was key. So anybody who's listening to this who isn't a technology fan or doesn't use technology, you are still going to get better customer service because somebody else has. And that was key. The other thing that I was very, very aware of was that the word app has become, we all know apps. And there's even a phrase, which is there's an app for that. And we always sigh when we say it, as if it's like, it's a bit boring or something. But there's another facet to this as well. If somebody's booking a flight at an airport, they go to that airport and it says, would you like service? Do you have any service requirements? Do you have any accessibility requirements? And you click a button and that sends a message to the airport to say, this person is disabled. It doesn't say how to actually help them. Well, what we've done is with welcomes, we've gone a step further. When you say that you need help, it trains the staff member. But when we realized we wanted to do that, we then decided that rather it being an app, it needed to be what would be termed as a web app, or totally connected to the internet. So if you went to a website for a particular venue in Newcastle in future, when you go to their website, you'll be able to use our platform through their website. It will look like an app and act like an app, but it will be an integration, or a widget as we call it, that is embedded in their website. Also, through their mobile phone, they won't have to download an app. They can go directly to their profile on the web for welcome, and they'll be able to pick and choose any of the venues that are on the platform from there. So in the future, it's not an app that you download and then load onto your phone and then use up your memory. It's purely a website that you then go onto that you can do all these things. But it does look like an app when you're utilizing it. So there was a tranche of tech, or how we were using the technology and how we were advancing how technology was being used and moving away from there's an app for that type answer.
I think also you've built something there that has this fluidity that can be changed really quickly, and you can roll out variations, iterations that meet different needs in different situations. So you've kind of built this extra layer through technology, which for a certain set of individuals who have those different needs, whether that's from the business side or whether that's from the visitor side, they are able to kind of enhance the experience that they can either provide or receive by having that technology layer in the middle. And it's at the same time almost an invisible layer. So that's really, really exciting to see how you can kind of build on top of other brand and business experiences by sort of coming in and meeting those needs there. In looking perhaps a little bit more broadly, we get very excited about technology. And in this series, we've explored things like augmented reality and how this can create just incredible experiences. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of see the vision of technology shaping the visitor destination, and maybe where you kind of want to prioritize tapping into that opportunity on the horizon.
Wow, that's quite a question. So look, we've got a vision for the Northeast if we take this to its base level. And I think it's worth saying that we're starting this in Newcastle, but we expect this to spread across the Northeast quickly. We needed a cluster, and then we see this becoming part of the Northeast. But we set a vision for the Northeast to double the size of our visitor economy in the next 10 years. That is quite the grand ambition. That would take us to a £10 billion industry in the Northeast by 2032, 2033. Technology will play a huge role in that. I look at my daughter, she's 18-year-old, pretty much everything she does is through her phone, pretty much kind of how she lives her life is through technology, and you kind of think they are the future customers of where we'll be. But I think Gavin hit the nail on the head earlier. Technology is the enabler. The great thing about tourism is whatever happens, it will still be experience driven, and people will still come to destinations and will still want to have those experiences in places. And I think we can use technology across that user journey. So using technology to inspire people to come to our destinations, and that may be the kind of VR tech, getting people to kind of do tours, getting people to see the destination before they come. While they're in destination, it will absolutely enable every part of that, whether that be to book things in here, whether that be us to show them what else they can do, whether that be simply things like their travel apps to help them get around the region, or whether it'll be really personalised customer service through things like welcome to make sure people have a brilliant experience. There is a key part of that journey in destination to make sure we engage with our people as they're leaving. How do we use technology to kind of say, thanks for visiting, please tell us how your visit was, please make sure you tell all of your friends, please upload your photos here, whatever it may be. And then that post period about how we stay in contact with those, and whether that be through social media, whether that be through kind of other technology that allows us to kind of, we've got another product called Geordie Street, which is an app we use to promote the neighbourhoods in our city, and through that allows us to kind of contact the users of that to bring new promotions, to bring them back in, to encourage those repeat visits. But for me, I think it is really about supporting the ecosystem and that experience system. We see parts of this where in other industries technology replaces people. I don't think we're on that journey. There will be enhancement to the experience, but I think in tourism it is very much about how do we make a better visitor experience through technology, not how do you take the people out of the sector. Look, I'll be very biased. We're in Newcastle, we're the friendliest people in the world. Gavin might argue with his accent, but I believe we have the greatest welcome of any destination, and you could never take the people out of that. But if those people feel more confident when a visitor walks through their door using welcome, then they're going to give an even greater welcome to the people that come in. So if they know what that visitor wants and how they augment that experience, then that's how technology supports that.
I think you've touched on some really key points there. The the importance of people in our industry is not something that's ever going to go away. It's what actually makes the experience so attractive. And yeah, as you say, in Newcastle, the people really, really kind of give this incredible welcome, unlike anywhere else. And I think, the other aspect that you kind of speak about is the opportunities that exist at every single stage along that visitor journey. And there are thousands and thousands of micro granular opportunities to enhance, to transform, to maybe even automate or make something smarter. But perhaps, we shouldn't look at that opportunity for automation as something that is also a threat to our industry or a threat to jobs, but an opportunity to speed things up, to create better service and to create more tailored and personalized services. And I think we're really reflecting on how Welcome has been able to create that transformative um, process through technology, where the people who engage with Welcome have actually been able to improve how they give that welcome. And I think that's a really key message there. Technology is enabling better service and better human interactions. It's not a barrier or something that gets in the way. I got a few questions on the kind of challenges you faced, Gavin, but before we come to that, I just have one more question about this entire innovation ecosystem that we're exploring now. And how do you see the opportunity to create that testbed within the Northeast? There's so many exciting projects developing. There's a lot of talent as well that's being invested in and being supported. And we also see here with Gavin, for example, really great examples where businesses are able to prototype solutions and ideas working together in collaboration and partnership. How do you see that opportunity to enable the sector to thrive and to grow and to be a testbed for all of these exciting new things to come?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with that with wow. Yeah, well, there is an amazing opportunity in Newcastle because Newcastle currently has no welcome venues. We're going to be landing in Newcastle and we're going to be going, here's a solution. Now, the working with NGI has meant that the solution is going to be made available. I think the key word here is PAN. Okay, PAN is definitely the key word. So we are going to be available in all sectors immediately. Customer service is from an office block to a retailer, to a cinema, to a service provider, to a health center, to a football stadium. Customer service is everywhere. There is a first point of contact for everybody. So PAN, we are going to be landing in a particular area to sort of like extend that analogy, and we're going in every direction when we land. And the other part of PAN is PAN disability. When you work with, say, for instance, a charity, that charity will focus in one particular area. So it will say, here is a focus on neurodiversity or a focus on visual impairment. Welcome has 31 different disabilities already on the platform. So when we land, it's a solution for everybody who considers and identifies themselves as a person who's disabled. And we even the platform has undisclosed condition because, and this is news to a lot of people and will be news to a lot of people, 70% of disabled people have hidden conditions. And the only way for them to actually be able to express a need is in the moment to say, hello, I'm living with schizophrenia. Hello, I'm living with autism. Hello, I'm living with a hearing impairment. Hello, I have acquired brain injury. And that is not an easy thing to do in the moment. Whereas this kind of discreet communication that you can build a friendship before you arrive and build a friendship with somebody who's going to greet you with a massive, big, smiley, Geordie face rather than the security guard that approaches somebody who looks drunk because they're probably or could be drunk, and they're approaching them and thinking, wait a second, this person's living with cerebral palsy or Parkinson's or acquired brain injury or aphasia, which might be something that affects their balance or how they look. And that person is going to go, brilliant, I can turn up the dial of my Northeast friendliness to 10 because I know I'm entering into a situation which is a friendly situation. So I think key here is the word pan, because we're going to be landing and we're going to be going in every direction at the same time. And we have not had a chance to do that with our company. Our company has evolved over 4 or 5 years where we've gone down the routes where there's a little bit more interest just now in tourism. There's a little bit more interest in government or council or whatever. We're going to have an opportunity to be in every direction at the same time, providing the same service with tiny tweaks to each sector. So I think that's the key to why this is truly exciting for us. And I hope we'll be and working with NGI and going, right, here is a lump sum of here's a project where we can go, what can you deliver for this? Because that's replicable across the whole of the United Kingdom, if not the world, because this doesn't exist anywhere in the world.
I think you definitely kind of highlight as well some of the assumptions that we quickly make in our everyday lives based on our own experience, not necessarily the experience that we perhaps might be able to try and understand for someone else. And I think those examples you give there are really, they really open your mind to how easily you can make that error or that mistake, perhaps forgivable as well if you don't necessarily understand that situation. And I think that's exactly where a solution like this is helping to create a better understanding, actually make the human smarter in the situation, which I think is just brilliant. And also, tourism is clearly an incredible industry, specifically because it transcends all other industries. So I think this is also a testament to how powerful the visitor economy is as an overarching sector that brings in others. Ian, how do you see the kind of innovation generally? And I guess this is a term we use very loosely for a lot of things, but it also perhaps means something a little bit different to everybody. What do you kind of think about when you see the opportunity to drive more innovation, working with people like Gavin to, I guess, transform the overall experience that you can bring?
Absolutely. And I think if we take innovation back to its early kind of roots, the Northeast is kind of one of the most innovative regions. The railway came out of the Northeast. We're about to celebrate kind of 250 years of the Darlington to Stockton Railway. You look at where we were from a shipbuilding industry, that innovation is right through. And obviously what came from the coal mines. And to bring that fast forward, one of the best innovations we're currently seeing in the region is we know the conversation around coal and where that's taken to us as a planet, but actually the new conference centre that will be opened, its energy will come from the mine water that is currently being extracted from the coal mines that caused the problem back then. So you kind of that Northeast innovation never stops. And I think that's one of the things about the region, that it always looks forward. It is always trying to evolve. And I think we've got a great business, especially in the visitor economy, they're willing to try things. They're willing to kind of look at new innovation. You've kind of only got to look across our visitor landscape. I think only last week, Maldron Hotel were on busier service times have brought in a butler robot to help out the staff that are working. You look at kind of some of the innovation that's gone into real listed buildings about how they support people coming in. So I think we're kind of region that looks at innovation, but almost innovation in that word, it's improvement really. It's how do we improve? I think innovation can sound like it costs a lot. It doesn't have to. It's just how do we continually improve as businesses, as people, as places. So I think that's kind of how we talk about that when we talk to the business. Because if you're an SME business and 9 to 5, you're just constantly churning out your baked goods or you're constantly trying to support customers, innovation is kind of something you don't have time to think about, but you're always thinking about how you improve your business. So I think that's where we sit on this. And obviously kind of working with colleagues such as Gavin, another that we're working on, takes us to a next level. I think it's kind of how do we bring technology and expertise to really help that business community. And there's kind of the two levels. It's how do we help as many businesses as we can at one time, and then how do we get granular with individual businesses that kind of want to go on the journey quicker. And actually we're looking at even how do we instill this. So we have things like the National Tourism Awards. How do we use our regional tourism awards to say, if you want to enter the accessibility category, you need to have done X, Y, and Z as a minimum. It's kind of not just how do you fill this box in really well because you're good at filling forms in. It's how have you made a significant difference by implementing these things. And one of the things we're committing to for our accessibility category, as an example, is our judges will only have lived experience. We won't have anyone just bringing judges into because they're sponsoring the award or whatever. To judge the accessibility category, they will have to have lived experience, because if you're sending someone out to look at a venue and they haven't got that lived experience, how do you really judge it? So that's how we're looking at moving these things forward.
That's great. And I guess it's also really understanding that innovation is about solving challenges, about improving everything that we can improve, and finding the right methods and processes that allows us to do that. And of course, today, technology sits right at the heart of that. But technology isn't innovation. It's the process of solving that problem and finding something that can improve on that problem. That's innovation. Gavin, you have a comment on that, and maybe I can also throw in a question at the same time, which is about the challenges, because we've spoken about so many inspiring examples of this brilliant kind of transformative solution that you've developed. But I'm sure it has not come without quite a few challenges. So I'd love you to tell us a bit about that, but I think you were going to say something off the back of that last comment as well.
Yeah, I just on what Ian was saying there, that I think is really key to this, because we're a country. The Northeast is an amazing part of the country, but the Northeast, I know, wants to be better than everybody else. That's a natural feeling that everybody wants to be better. But in this scenario, it's not about being better. It's about leading others so that they can follow, so that they can say, that, look, we started this, or we've demonstrated what's possible, but we want to share it with you because we are successful as a country when all of us are successful. So we're going to share with you this amazing route, this best practice. And we don't need to be better than everybody else. We'd like to lead you to show you how you can be better. And I think Ian really sort of picked up on that. And that's what I want to help deliver in the Northeast as well. Certainly for England, in Scotland, we've had this for a couple of years now. So we're kind of, what can I say about Edinburgh? It's already, no, Newcastle, best in England, obviously. Anyway, but leading. As far as challenges are concerned, innovation, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, innovation, and what I said before about nobody's done this before. Everybody thought that if you were to get on a train in 1812 in America and wanted to go from east to west, you would get across that country in the fastest way humanly possible. But in around about 1895, 1896, there was a couple of young men in America who were thinking, do you know what? I think you could probably get off the ground. I think you could actually fly. And everybody laughed at them and went, yeah, they had been thinking about that since Leonardo da Vinci or something like that. And they would go, no, you can't do it. It's impossible to do. And they got off the ground by 1911. They had flown 100 meters, I think, or 20 meters. I say flown. They sort of like managed to fall gracefully or with style, as Buzz Lightyear would say. But they kicked off something that was innovative. But I guarantee you they didn't see the benefits of what they were doing, other than somebody going, oh, I believe you now. It was only years later where it became, although it was quite quick, that it became flight for passengers who were suddenly going, why would I take a train? But that innovation comes at a cost, not just financially, but it comes at a cost emotionally and like your stamina, everything physically. And anybody that's been involved in innovation knows that the personal cost here is tough. The people who've worked for my company it's been tough for them. It's been tough for me. And you need champions. And Ian, when I first spoke to Ian, which was a while ago now, Ian was a champion. Ian was like, no, I'm going to make sure that you get the opportunity that this deserves and this needs. And he recognized us and he stayed in touch with us the whole time. So the challenge is that you have to wait an inordinate amount of time when you're an innovator to actually find the champions who are going to make that innovation spark. And you could you could go down the bottom of your garden and go into your shed, and you can invent a fantastic new perpetual motion machine. But unless you have somebody out there who's prepared to tell the world about it for you, because innovators aren't generally the best people to do that, or inventors, then you get nowhere. So I would say that is one of the greatest challenges, is in a world where one of the massive brands can pay $150,000 or pounds or whatever for an advert or a piece in a newspaper saying that their latest product is the most innovative that we're ever going to see. How do you ever get heard unless you have a champion who's prepared to do something before everybody else does, which is why NGI and work Ian has done and their collaboration is just so massively important to us.
Gavin, you summed this entire discussion up perfectly, so I wouldn't want to add anything else to that, other than to say that I think you're absolutely right. The importance of championing great innovators, people who want to change things, improve things, is something that we really need to celebrate and seek more of. And Ian, the work that NGI is doing to support not only Gavin, but many others like Gavin who have great ideas that they really want to embed into the destination that can transform the overall experience, is just something that we need to see more and more of. And I hope that you get all of the support to continue that journey. That was Ian Thomas and Gavin Neate sharing what I'm sure you'll agree is a pretty impressive application of technology. One that reminds us how digital transformation isn't always about what you can see on the surface, but it's about driving process change from behind the scenes. Now let's head over to Neha Arora, someone who shares a similar passion for accessible tourism, who sat with me to talk about the barriers she witnessed in her career for people with disabilities and impairments, and why she believes it makes sound business sense to prioritize accessibility from the outset.
Hi, I'm Neha Arora. I'm the founder of Planet Abled, which makes travel accessible and inclusive for people with all types of disabilities and the elderly.
Great. That sounds really exciting. So tell us a little bit about where the idea for Planet Able was born. How did you get that inspiration to create the business you've been able to successfully develop, and what's the motivation behind that?
So it started off more of a personal experience because I never traveled as a child. And my parents, who are in their 70s and 80s now, they never traveled until a few years ago. Because both of them are persons with disabilities. So my father is blind and mother is a wheelchair user. And because of the various inaccessibility that exist in our environment, in our society, travel was never on the cards. And I was very naive to think that it was the money issue. And when I started earning as well, the first thing I did was to start, save money and plan a holiday, only to realize, oh, it's not the money that is the problem. It's the inaccessibility of the destinations, the societal stigmas around disabled people traveling, or the insensitive attitude of the people or the destinations. So, after a series of arguments at various places for access, one argument turned into a mob fight, and the priest made it made inaccessibility about religion, and my parents kept their foot down never to travel again. And I was in my regular corporate job, an engineer by education, and into enterprise and pre-sales with IT and telecom companies like Nokia and Adobe. But then I had to look for a solution, only to find none. And even if there were some companies who were there, but they were single disability focused, like there is a company for blind, there is a company for wheelchair users. So it did not work for my family, which was more of an inclusive model. So I thought, okay, there is a problem that needs to be solved, and perhaps I can make it happen. But I had to convince myself if it could be a financially sustainable business. So I did my homework for 2 to 3 years, and then left my job to start Planet Able. That is where the idea was born, and it's been more than 7 years now.
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations. 7 years in a business that you started out with that critical question, which is, can this be financially sustainable? Can I build a business here? You've obviously done something right. Give us a bit of an idea about the services that you've developed. What is the business essentially doing and providing, and how are you working to overcome that barrier, that problem that you started out with?
So we started off like it was like to create travel services for disabled people of all types. So we started with local day trips in Delhi because one, we wanted to build trust in people that they can go on a holiday, and build trust in the industry that this is a market that they need to look into. And also, perhaps I was the least traveled travel business owner. So I had to learn a lot of ropes myself. But what started off as a service provider, like creating experiences and holiday, we actually had to become a destination developer because no one in the industry knew how to do it right. Because I was born into the privilege, I would say, of persons with two different disabilities. I knew what can go wrong. I always have experienced all through my life that how can inaccessibility come in your face in terms of built environment, communication, language, or body language. The various human aspects for that matter. So we had to become a destination developer in the sense we had to go and audit the places that if they are accessible, what all we can do to make with the available resources to make them accessible for all, and train and sensitize the staff, train and sensitize the guides and storytellers, and work with transport providers to train them that how do they cater to guests with disabilities. So that started, and it still goes till day. And we also do an accessibility assessment of each traveler. So whether they are a solo traveler, couple, family, or they are joining our inclusive group trip, it's always like what are the individual needs, because each disabled person has different accessibility needs. Two wheelchair users will have different accessibility requirements for that matter. Similarly, for two blind people. So each one has to be catered to and then standardized while they are traveling. And the ecosystem has to be prepared for each of them. And most importantly, their interest. Like, because there's nothing without, you cannot just trust people with this is the program that we have to offer. You go take it or you don't take it. So we have to map the interest to the different experiences that each destination has to offer. So yeah, this has been we have been trying to do. And all the we also launched inclusive group trips where we mix people with and without disabilities to travel together. So like in one group you'll have a person who is blind, deaf, autistic, or a wheelchair user, and there are people without disabilities traveling together. So this creates like an ecosystem and a group which is inclusive and which has very amazing ripples going out in the community and society. Plus, we now also consult the businesses that how they can become inclusive, whether it's a hotel, tourism board, and provide training and standardization so that they don't need us basically, because not everyone can afford a concierge based travel service in the first place. So you have to make it affordable too. So we are building a global standard for accessibility and inclusion for the tourism industry as well.
So it seems like this exchange of perspectives, both between you and your customers, but also between your customers and then between the suppliers, the industry that's delivering this amazing, unique experiences, which is, of course, what travel is all about, is really key. How do you create that sense of collaboration, which I guess is really something that has to sit at the heart of making sure that you're able to apply empathy in the way in which you design those experiences and adapt those experiences for your guests.
Absolutely. I think a large part of is identifying the right people to work with, because most people are nice. Really, they're not bad. It's just that there is lack of awareness about accessibility and inclusion in the industry. One, it is not considered as a big business opportunity by businesses because conservatively, persons with disabilities like are assumed they don't have money and they don't travel. So that lack of awareness actually leads to a lot of preconceptions that the industry has. So one is working with them and identifying the people who are sensitive and who are willing to take that like leap of faith. Oh, I can do it. It's just a little bit of extra work, but it has its unique benefits of creating amazing memories for travelers with disabilities. So it's a gradual process, really, like identifying those people who are willing to experiment and work with you, and then aligning the needs of the travelers, and then also the limitations of the suppliers and the organizations like the hotels or museums as well, to work around that. What is the best solution that you can create at that moment and what is available?
So, what would your advice be to the industry, perhaps destinations, who recognize that this is something that's very important for them to be able to build into their offer, to create an offer which is altogether more accessible, perhaps more adaptable to the different needs of the enormous range of different guests and customers that they'll have coming through their doors? How can they take that kind of first step to ensuring that they create better experiences for all of their customers?
I think the first step is to get over the preconception that accessibility is just wheelchair access, which I am surprised, whether I am in a developing nation or whether I'm in a developed nation, the lack of awareness that exists in even the big hotel chains, that accessibility is just, oh, we have a like wheelchair accessible room and a disabled friendly toilet. It ends there. That is where accessibility ends. And it's just 10 to 12% of the disabled population. The rest of the population has other types of accessibility needs, which is your digital accessibility, which is your communication, information, the human accessibility. I mean, there's so many types of disabled people having visible and invisible disabilities, and their access needs are different, as diverse as any human form that can exist. So the first is to know that this is beyond a wheelchair. And second is it's a $13.1 trillion US business opportunity that they are not tapping into, which, about their prejudice that they don't have money and people with disabilities don't travel and things like that. And they have to look at disabled people as equitably paying customers and create services and accessibility for them. It's like when you ask a traveler or a guest at your hotel, what kind of pillow would you like? As per your needs. They have to ask, okay, what is your accessibility needs and how can I help you?
Do you think this should be a standard part of the conversation then when we begin speaking to a guest for the first time, to make sure that that part is the very first part that we try to understand about our guests?
Absolutely, because you have to ask what their needs are. It's like has to be mainstreamed, and everyone we have 15% of the population having an accessibility need. It's not a small number. So consider that like one in every 6 or 7 person will have a need which might be visible or invisible. So it has to be mainstreamed. Everyone should be made aware about in the hospitality and tourism industry that they will definitely come across a person who will have a disability. They might have a sensory disability, some food allergy, or it could be some kind of sensory disability around light or sound, or it could be the more common disabilities, like which is more known to most of the people, like being blind or deaf or being autistic, and of course a wheelchair user. So it's so much more.
Yeah, I think you really have been able to highlight just what a huge market opportunity this is. Perhaps not to, so to speak, cater for people with disabilities, but cater for everybody, and recognize that, as you say, 1 in 6 people is a pretty huge market that you could be just simply neglecting or overlooking their needs. But at the same time, it seems to me that factoring that in, considering everybody in the bigger picture of your customer base, is really about growing the business opportunity that exists there as well, not only doing the right thing by your customers.
Absolutely. And another thing I would suggest businesses to do is to have persons with disabilities in leadership roles internally, not at a blue collar level, but in leadership roles, so that they can become their own ambassadors and, own internal champions of accessibility in the workplace as well. So, that's like full integration, not just as a disabled people as a customer, but also as employees.
Absolutely. And I think that's clearly something that we need to really work hard to ensure that we prioritize as an industry so that we have those needs, those perspectives, those experiences represented at the decision making level. And this is not something we do simply to say that we've done it. As you say, so many businesses in the tourism industry see disability through the lens of a wheelchair, and of course, that is really not how we should look at disability or making experiences accessible to all. One thing I'm curious to rack your brains on is looking at technology, because technology, it seems, has created so many exciting opportunities, perhaps also many barriers at the same time. What gets you excited about technology when we think about the role it can play in addressing the needs of visitors who perhaps don't currently see their needs being addressed in the everyday offer?
See, technology is the game changer. We really cannot imagine our lives without it. And when it comes to tourism and hospitality, it's just the same. We haven't just thought about beyond a wheelchair. That's the problem. And when we look at there's so many amazing assistive technology solutions that exist now, whether it's indoor navigation, whether it's outdoor navigation for people who are blind, whether it's communication technologies, remote communication technologies for people who are deaf, or whether it's smart lights and sounds for people with sensory needs, for that matter. This is all technology, and if integrated into mainstream, that can actually be a game changer, not just for disabled travelers. It can actually create better experiences for the non-disabled people as well. So, giving a very simple example of technology in our daily lives that we use, that has been so mainstream that we don't realize that it was an accessibility solution in the first place. So, the laptops that we use and the keyboard that we use is a successor to a typewriter. And the typewriter was invented for the blind to write letters between two friends who could not communicate in the late 1800s. So, and it is so mainstream, we cannot imagine a life without it. And every one of us use it every day. And you like talk about Alexa, Google Home for that matter. This voice enabled technology was created so that people with severe mobility impairments can have better control of their like surrounding environment. We all use it every day.
Yeah, exactly. So the technologies which we love today often stem from solving a much more specific problem for a particular user who, for whom that technology has helped them to overcome a particular problem in a particular environment. Of course, when you describe the huge array of disabilities that much of the population have to work with on a day-to-day basis, it does sometimes seem that knowing where to focus as a business can also be quite challenging. You've spoken about a number of different sensory challenges which people have to overcome in their day-to-day lives. So perhaps could you give us an idea of some of the really key pillars that we can think about trying to overcome within our offer, for example, as a hotel, and where we'll be working across a significant number of impairments or disabilities that visitors may face. So, what would you say are some of the key things that we should think about beyond, of course, just the physical accessibility aspect?
So I think it might sound overwhelming to businesses when we talk about so many disabilities and so many accessibility needs. I think the first step should be if they are creating travel content, like about their hotel website for that matter. Is it accessible in the first place? Like the basic website where anyone would go to book. Apart from Expedia, none of the booking websites are digitally accessible.
Wow, that really speaks volumes. Think that's already an incredible statement when there are so many technologies which can be easily integrated to allow you to manipulate the colors, to bring out certain elements, to accent and changed contrast levels, to do voiceover, and even what I've seen is, for example, British Sign Language video overlays on websites. So the number of things we can do to just optimize that one interface is incredible, and yet so few businesses consider that to be a priority. I think that definitely speaks for itself.
Yeah, and also I feel like there is a lot of difference between businesses that exist in the developed countries and the developing nations. So the challenges, I mean, I would like to highlight that because any conversation that happens about accessibility in the tourism, I mean, or any in general tourism or any standardization, we are always talking about like the developed nations. So the challenges are very much different. Like, more websites would be accessible in US because of the ADA, of course, which has been around for 32 years. But none of the websites would be accessible in Asian countries at all. And it's the same with European nations as well. So it's growing slowly, the awareness, but we are still not there. And not just the website, the travel content. You have so much travel content being generated every day. How many of these travel videos, fancy travel videos, have audio descriptions? How many of them have captions? Or how many of them are being produced keeping light sensitivity or sound modulation in mind for people who might have some triggers?
Yeah, I guess when you explain these things that many of us, most of us even, understand are possible and can assist and support user needs, it seems clear that perhaps the biggest problem is it's not on our consciousness when we come to creating and producing such content. And perhaps over time, we've become increasingly aware of the need for images, content to be more representative of the audiences that we're speaking to and the places that we're talking about. But I guess this is another element that it's really important that we're able to factor that and consider that when we make those choices, because audio description, as you say, is something that I have to say I haven't seen a great deal of in the tourism industry. But at the same time, why not? So I think you've raised many, many questions in today's discussion. Perhaps as a final question, how would you describe innovation when it comes to accessibility? What's happening in this space? What's perhaps really exciting where you can see developments emerging quite fast?
I think we're seeing a lot of innovation happening in the accessibility space globally, but on the same at the same time, I'm sad that these solutions are not talking to each other. So, like they're very regional and focused. So there's one company who creates a solution regionally in Brazil, or some company who creates a solution somewhere in Australia or Japan, and they stay there And the problem is they're not talking to each other too. So there is no replicability. So there's no point like reinventing the wheel when you already have a solution in some part of the world. It's all about creating spaces where these technologies can come together, learn from each other, and are willing to collaborate with each other. So, and they are built not for just legal compliance sake, but built for something that they really want to solve a problem and mainstream that technology for everyone. That's where I find, like amazing leaps being done in indoor navigation for that matter. The technology has been around for like 8-10 years, like as of I'm aware of, but it still exists in only few parts of the world. It hasn't found its way mainstream. Businesses uh, are still not investing into it. It's very tough for these technology solutions to get into the market. There is very less funding, venture funding also getting into these innovations, for that matter, to scale them. Like their funding is going into education, fintech, and stuff. But the inclusion and accessibility aspect is completely missing. That's not there. So you are missing out on like that 15% of the population completely. And the businesses who are getting funded, I think they are also somewhere focusing on only like channelizing the solutions only through the non-profit and the disability community as well. They're not thinking at mainstreaming that technology. So that I think needs to really happen. Whether there's so many sign language platforms being created so that the lack of sign language interpreters in the world can be filled, which is huge. So yeah, I mean, there are amazing things happening, but I think we need to replicate them really, really fast and mainstream.
I think your passion comes across so strongly, and I guess we need real ambassadors and advocates like yourself who can bring that message home to everybody. When you speak about the many possibilities, when we think about technology and how startups and technology companies could be right at the very heart of solving these problems, but crucially, I think is what you're saying here, scaling these problems and really fostering an idea around open innovations so that one solution can then be scaled, replicated, and integrated across all of the different parts of the tourism industry. And of course, to see others incorporating these solutions into what they do. You've been listening to Place-Based Innovation with myself, Nick Hall. The producer of this series is Ana Balaguer Sanchez, production and editing by Dan Hopkins. The series is part of the Hospitality Innovation Tourism Supply Programme, which supports businesses in Northumberland, Newcastle and North Tyneside to meet challenges through innovation. The programme is funded by North of Tyne Combined Authority and delivered by NewcastleGateshead Initiative, Food and Drink Northeast and NBSL. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to get notified of future episodes. And if you've enjoyed today's podcast, why not take a moment to leave a review? Thanks, and we'll see you next time.